You were chairman of the board of Bank of America during one of the most tumultuous periods in our nation's history. Would you care to talk a little bit about how that happened? Were you standing again at that board looking at your name, and certainly it appeared?
Another one of these intersections. I had been on a number of corporate boards, which is sort of another parallel story. And I had joined the Bank of America board when I was in California. It was the Bank of America in San Francisco, and it merged with Nations Bank in Charlotte, and we became a new global Bank of America, and I stayed on the board.
What years were you?
I joined the Bank of America board in 1993 when I went to be provost. They asked me to join the board there. So that's when I joined it. And so in 2009, when this financial crisis became a hit, I'd been serving on the board for a number of years. And the shareholders voted that the bank should separate the roles of chairman and CEO. In most American corporations, that's one person holds both those roles, chairman of the board and CEO. And when the day they voted that, we were going to have a board meeting right after the shareholders voted that. The board was going to choose a new chair. And I had in my mind who I would support. We had a number of distinguished people, on the business people, CEOs. And just before we went into the meeting, the current CEO, Ken Lewis, said, "Walter, you have a couple of minutes?" I said, "Sure," before we go in. He said, "Well, I've consulted with your fellow board members and the nominating and executive committee, and we'd like for you to be our chair." And I won't tell you what I said, not for a family audience. It was a shock. I mean, literally. I was not a banker, and it's very interesting. I said, "That just doesn't make any sense. I'm not a banker. You need, and we're in a crisis here. You need someone who has experience." He said, "We talked about it, and we really think you're the right person." That's why he said, "People," and this is literally said, "People think you have a great sense of integrity, honesty, and people like working for you. The board will follow your leadership. It's not a job you have to do by yourself, all of that. And we think you can represent us well, and your reputation will be good enough in this position." I mean, I thought of Benjamin Mays. I really did. I thought maybe there is something to this. And I don't say that, as you know me, in a sort of self-referential way. I saw it as a kind of vindication, or what do you call it, affirmation of the fact that those qualities that Benjamin Mays taught us really can go beyond just your own satisfaction, that they are valuable qualities to have in a world where you want other things to, what other measures of success. But it was the most difficult year of my life, outside of personal, family deaths and that kind of thing, because it was right in the middle of the financial crisis. This was the largest bank in the country at that time, and at many times there was a question of whether the bank would fail, the issues we had to deal with. So that was one of those seminal experiences.